to Citations. My name is Samantha, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in August. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Welcome back, my friends. We're doing another wrap-up video. I'm going to be wrapping up all of the books that I read in August. I'm a little out of breath. Let me take a drink. I don't know what's going on. I'm a little sick. I'm feeling a lot better, but I think that's why I'm a little out of breath, so bear with me in this video. Anyways, I'm just gonna chill with you guys, talk about some books that I read in August. I read a lot of Omegaverse, which is an absolute surprise to nobody because you guys know I have been so stuck on Omegaverses recently. Thank you guys for all of the recommendations. In my last wrap-up, I've been like slowly making my way through your guys' recommendations, so thank you. I have some paranormal romances. I read a cozy mystery, a historical romance, so honestly a little bit of everything. Before I jump into the books though, I will give you some of my stats. So in the month of August, I ended up reading 13 books. My best month quantity wise, but like I've said in my previous wrap-ups, I have noticed that I haven't been reading as many books throughout the month, but I've been having a lot of 5 stars in books that I'm enjoying, so it kind of all balances out. I've already met my reading goal for the year. I wanted to read 100 books and I've done that, so now it's just, you know, having fun. Out of the 13 books that I read, I had 5 5 stars, 5 4 stars, and 3 3 stars. So I didn't have anything below a 3 star. I really did enjoy everything that I read this month, and I'm excited to talk about all of them. I think what we're going to do is I'll talk about all of my 5 stars, then my 4 stars, then my 3 stars. If they're books that were in a series, I'll kind of lump them together, but let's go ahead and hop in. My first 5 star of the month was a cozy mystery, and it was A Murder at the Movies by Ellie Alexander. This is the second book in her secret bookcase mystery series. The first one I read last month, The Body in the Bookstore, and I gave it 5 stars. So it's no surprise that I also gave this one 5 stars. Ellie Alexander is one of my favorite cozy mystery authors of all time. I really enjoy her Bake Shop mystery series and her Sloane Across mystery series. These two are the start of a new bookish cozy mystery series that she's been writing, and have been loving it. The series follows our heroine Annie, who lives in a small town in Northern California, works at a mystery themed bookstore, and when she was younger and in college, one of her best friends was murdered. The case was never solved, so there's kind of this subplot throughout both of these books that is her trying to figure out what happened to her best friend. Consider our main character Annie a little more advanced than your average sleuth because she actually does have a criminology degree. Because of all of that, this series feels very different from other books that Ellie Alexander has written, and I really like it. Murder at the Movies is the second installment of the series. Technically, you can read cozy mystery series out of order, but honestly, I would just read it in order because they're both so good. This book starts off when Annie is propositioned to host a movie festival in her town. She does work at the bookstore, but she's also kind of an events organizer for some of the small businesses. So she gets propositioned to host a film festival for a small indie film. Of course, she's excited. It brings a lot of exposure not to only her business, but the other businesses in town. However, there's a lot of Hollywood drama going on. What's even worse is that there is a film critic in town who is absolutely awful. The cast, the director, the producer, they're all trying to impress this film critic because he can really make or break the movie, but things take a disastrous turn when he is found dead in the movie theaters. Hence the title, Murder at the Movies, so she needs to figure out what's going on. There was a lot of classic film references. There was also a little bit of a romance subplot, which is kind of fun to read about in this book, and I'm very interested to see that play out in the rest of the series. But yeah, I'm very excited to have another 5-star cozy mystery read. The next book I gave 5 stars was The Game Changer by Lana Ferguson. This is a hockey romance. I've read 2 other Lana Ferguson books and also rated them highly. I loved The Fake Mate, which was a Grumpy Sunshine Omegaverse. I also loved The Nanny, which was a nanny romance, and now she just recently came out with this sports romance. So she's just one of those authors where it seems like she could literally write any trope or subgenre and I will like it. The book follows our characters Delilah and Ian, and this is a brother's best friend romance. Our heroine Delilah is a baker. She has her own baking show, and she has been hopelessly in love with her brother's best friend Ian, who is a professional hockey player. They're actually also childhood friends. They have known each other their entire lives and did have a little bit of a scandal when it came to his first marriage and his divorce, so he was traded to a separate hockey team in another state. Years pass where they don't really talk all of that much until Ian is traded back to his hometown. His image is surrounded by the drama of his divorce, and our heroine Delilah, she has a baking show that is really not getting the best ratings. Both of their PR teams end up concocting kind of this idea to have a fake dating scenario. Ian ends up doing some guest appearances on her baking show to get his reputation looking a little bit more cozy and family friendly, and the two of them end up spending a lot of time together, and it follows their romance. I really liked this one. It was really, really sweet. Our heroine had been pining for Ian for the longest time, and usually I like something with a little bit more mutual pining, but you couldn't help but root for our heroine because she knew exactly what she wanted and she was willing to go for it. She was confident, she was funny, she was kind, and I just love Lana Ferguson's writing in general, so this one was an awesome hockey romance with a brother's best friend trope. Next book I gave 5 stars was Deadly Lineage by MJ May. This is a start to a new series that she's writing, but it does loosely connect to one of her other series, her Perfect Pixie series, I think that's what it's called. I read all of those books and absolutely loved this one, but Deadly Lineage is a male-male paranormal romance. Our hero's Boone is a necromancer, which means he can call souls from the dead. He can talk to them, he can control them, and it is a power that a lot of people don't understand and a lot of people fear, so he is a little bit of an outcast in society. One day he is on a job and he ends up finding a restless soul. He gets there, he realizes that it was a witch that was brutally murdered, and it almost feels like her soul had been torn apart, and even in the afterlife, she is in an immense amount of pain. So he ends up reporting it and working with the local detective, Franklin, to figure out what is going on. Very quickly, they start to find other bodies and other souls that are being torn apart, so they have to work together to stop this serial killer. Romance is obviously between our hero and the detective, and it is such a sweet, slow burn romance. I also really liked the mystery subplot. It was kind of obvious who the villain was, but I still enjoyed reading it. I just generally love MJ May's writing style. I feel like she writes very unique paranormal romances, and her books are really, really underrated. So yeah, I gave this one 5 stars. All right, my next 5 stars was technically a reread, and that was Unnatural by Alexandra Hazard. This is the first book in her Wrong Alpha series. It is a male-male Omegaverse series that I have loved for a really long time. Unnatural is my favorite book in the series, and I decided to just reread it because I've been in such an Omegaverse mood. This one is a very unique Omegaverse because it actually follows our heroes who are both alphas. That's not very common in Omegaverse. Usually, if there's multiple alphas, it's because it's a poly or wide shoes romance, but there's always a beta or an omega involved. The story starts off by following our hero Hayden, who is the heir to his kingdom and also the general. His entire life there has been war between a neighboring kingdom, so his father decides to set up a political marriage. He ends up getting set up into an arranged marriage to one of the senators of the neighboring kingdom, Royce, who is supposed to be a beta. In this universe, every alpha is pretty much automatically enlisted to the military, and when Royce's mother found out that his designation was one of an alpha, she got really, really scared, didn't want to lose her son to the military, so she ends up masking his designation and telling everyone that he's a beta. His entire life, he has been lying about his designation, and now he is married to a very prominent alpha. Alphas typically do not bond with each other because of their designations and their aggressive tendencies in this universe, but the pair of them have to kind of figure out how to make this arranged marriage work if they want to keep peace between their two kingdoms. I love this book so much. If you like possessive alpha heroes, you will love this book. You'll love it. And it makes me realize that we really do need more alpha-alpha pairings in Omegaverse because it's just divine. I love how feral our two characters are for each other. It's intense, it's sexy, it's everything you need. I gave it 5 stars even on the reread. The reason I ended up rereading that one is because she recently came out with the 5th book in this series, and it's called Forbidden. As long as you have read Unnatural, you can definitely read Forbidden and kind of like skip the rest of the books in the series. The books in the middle of the series aren't as strong as like the first and last one. Forbidden, I ended up giving 4 stars. It is another male-male Omegaverse. It follows our hero Axel, who is an alpha, and he has been hopelessly in love with his stepdad. Yeah. Our hero Lucian at a very young age presented as an Omega, and he was assaulted by a group of alphas. When it happened, his family actually ended up blaming him for the whole situation and kicked him out of his home. Axel's father ended up taking him as a second husband, almost for his own protection. It wasn't a love match or anything like that. It was purely a marriage of convenience. Axel grows up with Lucian in his home his entire life. I think there's only like a 10-year age gap between them, and they were always very, very close. Axel ends up going to the military because he is an alpha. When he comes back, he's a little bit older and he still is hopelessly in love with Lucian. So it follows their very forbidden, angsty romance. I loved this book a lot. I gave it 4 stars, but I will say, this is not a beginner Omegaverse book, okay? If you've never read the genre, I fear you will not understand all of the dynamics that are in this series. Has very like niche Omegaverse tropes, so if you've never read an Omegaverse before, it might not make a ton of sense, but I really loved it. If you're looking to get into Omegaverse, I have a whole playlist here on my channel of my favorites, books that I would recommend for beginners, and kind of like a 101 guide on all of the dynamics, so I will leave that down below for you. The next 2 books that I really enjoyed are a part of a series by Lily Mayne. It is her Goliaths of Wrestling series, and they are male-male paranormal romances. First book in the series is called Impromptu Match. This is such a unique book. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. The book starts off by following our hero Taylor, who is human, and he is just in a rut in his life. He's not happy at his job after a bad breakup a couple of years ago and hasn't really found any interest in dating, and he kind of wakes up one morning realizing that he's just living a boring, mundane life, doing the same thing over and over again. He kind of comes to that realization at an office birthday party and ends up drinking a lot and stumbling upon a whole paranormal universe. So his office spaces is actually an underground wrestling ring that is hosted by paranormal creatures. Because he is human, he's not really supposed to know about all of this, but he does stumble upon it and ends up meeting the boss of the wrestling ring, and his name is Holt, and it follows their romance. This one is hilarious. Like, I can't even describe to you. It is so funny, the banter between our characters. It's also very sexy and such a unique paranormal romances. Like, paranormal monsters who wrestle. I really don't know what gets better than that. The first book in the series I gave 4 stars. The second book in the series is called Clean Finish, and I gave that one 5 stars. This is a romance between a werewolf shifter and a fairy. Our hero Larkin is a fae, and he is the assistant to Holt in the first book, the owner of the wrestling ring. He works there for quite a long time, and he's constantly flirting with the wrestlers and trying to like put himself out there. He's known as a huge flirt, just this rambunctious, playful type of person. But the truth is, he is pretty insecure because he doesn't have a lot of experience, and now he is nervous to be intimate with other people because of his lack of experience. He ends up propositioning one of his friends, Sebastian. Sebastian is a werewolf shifter who also works at this wrestling ring. He is the bodyguard to the boss, and they're always like working in close quarters with one another. So our hero Larkin ends up propositioning Sebastian to kind of give him some sexy lessons, if you will, and it follows their friends to lovers romance. This one was especially delicious and sexy. I love a book with like sexy lessons. It's also had a little bit of a fated mates trope as well, and it's just so good. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Cannot wait for the 3rd book in the series. It hasn't come out yet, but I can't wait till it does. All right, I think those are all of my 5 stars, and I did have a couple more 4 stars. So the next one is another paranormal romance, and it's called 5-Star Review by Marie Renard. Marie Renard is another author who writes male-male paranormal romances. She only has 2 other books published right now on Kindle Unlimited, but I really, really enjoyed them. 5-Star Review is a friends to lovers romance between a shifter and a human. Our hero Zane is a shifter, and he has been hopelessly in love with his best friend Aiden ever since they became college roommates. However, he has never really expressed his feelings because his best friend is a human and does not know about the paranormal world. Aiden has quite an interesting job. He actually reviews sexy toys online, and he ends up getting exposed to the paranormal universe when one of his fans sends him a sexy toy that is kind of modeled after shifters anatomy, if you will. Obviously, when he realizes that a whole paranormal community exists, Zane has to tell him the truth, and it follows their very sweet friends to lovers romance. This one was a good novella, although it does loosely connect to some of her other books. You can absolutely read it as a standalone. It was sexy, it was sweet, everything I'm looking for in a novella. Next couple of books are all by Jillian West. Jillian West is an author that I discovered last month. If you guys saw my last month's wrap up, I read like almost 10 of her books. I've just been binging her backlist. She writes a lot of paranormal and Omegaverse romances. So yeah, I've just been making my way through her backlist. One of the books that I read by her this month is called Wicked Truths. This is the last book in her Ruined Record series, which is a Rockstar Omegaverse series. The book follows our heroine Oakley, who is an Omega, and she is trying to make it big in the music industry. It's very rare for an Omega to be a rock star because of their designation and because of the fact that they do have to take time off for their heat. The book kind of follows Oakley as she is creating her pack. This is a Why Choose romance. She ends up creating bonds with some of her bandmates as well as her bodyguards. Jillian West absolutely loves a bodyguard trope, so you will see that in almost every single one of her books. But I really like this one. I gave it 4 stars. Technically, you can read that one out of order, but I think it's best if you read the entire series in order because you do see side characters from the other books as well. And then the next one I read by her is called Three of a Kind. This is a part of her Assurance Security series. Again, can be read out of order, but it's probably best if you read it in order. The book follows a group of guys who work for Assurance Security, which is basically a security team that tracks down people who are trying to hurt Omegas. Three of a Kind follows our heroine Brooklyn, who is heavily pregnant and already has one other child. Her baby daddy is a horrible guy in the mafia, and she definitely fears not only for her life, but the life of her children. This is another Why Choose romance. That is how she meets our heroes, who are a part of the security team that is sent to protect her, and she ends up bonding with them. This one was just okay. Definitely not my favorite book in the series. I ended up giving it 3 stars because I do still love Jillian West writing, and I do like this series, but again, I read other books that I liked more by her. It's also kind of how I felt about the next book that I read by her. It's called The Monster's Den, which is the first book in her Monstrous World series. I believe this is a trilogy of paranormal romances. The first book follows our heroine Emerson, who is a single mom. Her daughter is a werewolf shifter, and her daughter's father is not in the picture at all. She had no idea that her ex was a werewolf, so she has absolutely no idea how to raise a werewolf shifter. And even worse is that her ex's pack is actually trying to like extort money from her and is threatening her. She is desperately trying to protect herself and her daughter. She ends up working kind of like at a sex club, if you will, and catching the eye of the owners of the business. Of course, this is another Why Choose romance, so she ends up having a connection with a alpha hellhound shifter, a vampire, and a gargoyle. So lots of fun paranormal things happening. It was a good start to the series, but again, I read so many Jillian West books that I really liked, and this one was just kind of okay. I gave it 3 stars. Next book I read was also part of a series. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't know. I've just been catching up on series recently, but it is Chokehold by Eve Holmes. This is technically a duology, and it is a male-male romance between our 2 characters who are professional MMA fighters. First book in the series is called Hooks In, and the second book in the series that I just recently read is called Chokehold. It follows our 2 characters, Ty and Luca, who are sports rivals. They've grown up in the same circle and have constantly fought against each other to be the top spot in their weight class until they are actually signed to the same professional team, and now they have to work together instead of fighting against each other. So it follows their enemies to lovers romance. It's pretty low angst for the most part, but does have a lot of fun banter. So if you're looking for a fun male-male sports romance to pick up, Hooks In, which is the first book in the series, I gave 4 stars, and then Chokehold, which is the second book, I ended up giving 3.5 stars. And then the last book I read for the month was actually my book pick for the Historical Hellions, which is a book club that I host with Christy from Christy Reads a Lot and Jessica from Peace Love Books. We read historical romances published before the year 2000, and this month we read Deception by Amanda Quick. I love Amanda Quick. She writes really fun adventure historical romances. I ended up giving this one like a 3.5 4 stars. The beginning of the book follows our hero Jared, who ends up finding a long lost journal that was written by one of like his great grandmothers, and supposedly has like some hidden treasure within it. Our hero is a pirate, and he ends up agreeing to take this journal as well as some goods to our heroine Olympia. Olympia is a librarian and has the skills to kind of like decode this journal. When he gets there, instead of telling her that he is a pirate, he ends up saying that he is a tutor for her 2 nephews that she is a guardian of, and it follows their romance. This one is really fun. It was a pretty sweet romance with very low angst and a slight adventure plot, and I liked it a lot. The only reason I'm giving it 3.5 4 stars is because, one, I've read other Amanda Quick books that I've loved more, like Ravished, and also I wanted a little bit more of external conflict and an adventure like she has in some of her other books. So still good, but not my favorite Amanda Quick book. I think that is all of the books that I read this month. I'm getting a little tired and a little sleepy. I feel like I keep sniffling. I did love a lot of the books that I read this month. Lots of 5 stars. So yeah, let me know what you guys have been reading this month. If you stayed this long, leave me an emoji. How about you leave me a pumpkin emoji, because it's the fall season and I'm wearing a Hocus Pocus shirt. So leave me a pumpkin emoji in the comments if you stayed this long and you enjoyed the video, and I'll know that we're bookish besties. As always, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. It means the world to me. I hope you guys are all staying happy and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!